morning to you. Rise and shine up and at 'em. We getting it together. I see you got my hair gone. We rolling. I know that you could be anywhere. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. You guys, hold on. I got him on the line, but I want to give his just introduction, so let me do that. Detroit City Honorable Councilman James Tate. Is this you on the line?
This is me on the line. Good
Wonderful.
morning.
Hold on 1 second, sir, because I'm going to give your adequate introduction that is worthy of your vitae, if you don't mind. And then I'll
Yes,
bring you
ma'am.
in. So hold on. Everyone, he is in the building. And let me just tell you, it is everything because we are in a space right now. And I'm going to make it so that the Honorable Councilman can hear the conversation before I bring him in. Look here, everyone. It's an exciting time. And you're officially tuned into Cannabis, discussing the business of the cannabis industry. And it is imperative that we have these conversations. I promise you that at the end of this time together, you will be educated, enlightened, and empowered. Everyone, I would be remiss to ask us to take a moment of silence and personal reflection. We've lost the own great Toni Morrison, passed away. Bless her, her legacy. That is important to honor those who've come before us at 88 years of age. So we are honoring her and her legacy, of course, this morning. And then I want to, because I don't know if you all really understood the significance of yesterday. Of course, voting is always an opportunity, but on August 6th in 1965, that was some 54 years ago, that is when President Lyndon B. Johnson signed in the Voting Rights Act to give us the opportunity, specifically for black folk, African American folk in this country, to be able to vote. And so I thought it was so fitting that on yesterday we were exercising our right in this great state of Michigan, 3 communities specific for the ordinance as it pertains to marijuana or cannabis. And then we have the pleasure of having him on the line this morning, the chief sponsor of the ordinance for the city of Detroit, Honorable Detroit City Councilman James Tate. Let me give you a little bit of his background, please. I would be remiss before we bring him on. Let me let you know that he was first elected to Detroit City Council in 2009. He was re-elected to represent District 1 in 2013. Before his work on City Council, he served as second deputy chief for the Detroit Police Department and as an Emmy Award winning assignment editor at WAXYZ TV, that's Channel 7. He's a graduate of Benedictine High School and Wayne State University. He has lived in District 1 his whole entire life. He is known for making the tough decisions when they have to be made and believes in accessible government. Councilman Tate consistently seeks ways to forge and cultivate neighborhood partnerships within his district. He hosts monthly meetings in District 1. He ensures that residents are up to speed on the latest issues that affect their lives. His bi-weekly satellite hours at the Motor City Java and Tea House further extend his reach into the community. He created the City for Detroit's only district-wide comprehensive online business directory that can be found at discoverd1.com. He's on the ground and on the run in District 1. I'd also let you know that he sits on such boards as the Zoological Society and Authority Health. He sits on the following city council standing committees: internal operations and planning and economic. He's a chair of the task force of black male engagement. He's also the co-chair of My Brother's Keepers Challenge. And in additionally, he's a member of Triumph Church, where he serves in the men's choir, the Men of Valor. And I believe probably most importantly, he's the proud husband of Dr. Neutrina Watts.
Latrina. Yep.
Neutrina Watts Tate. So I just think that that is a fitting introduction. I hope that he agrees. Great, amazing morning to you, sir.
A great, amazing morning to you as well. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
That guy's busy. Whoever you're talking about, that guy is busy.
but look, this guy is really busy. And let me just please, before we get into cannabis, the significance of the Voting Rights Act on yesterday, and that same act allowed us, these wonderful residents, the great residents of this city of Detroit, to elect you into office. Can you briefly share your thoughts about the Voting Rights Act?
Yeah, I mean, I was, of course, I wasn't born at that time. It was 10 years, 11 years prior to me being
Yes.
born, 10 years prior to me being born. So I'm just thankful to be in a position where I, one, am able to be elected and represent people, but even more important than that, I have the ability now to actually go out and vote for someone who can represent me. So I think that's extremely important. You have in history situations and around the world where the folks in power don't represent the individuals who they are supposedly coming up with the laws, regulations, and all these other different things, protections for, and it kind of skews sometimes their perception of the people that they serve being not from that community.
Yes.
So this gives us an opportunity to really play a role in shaping what our community looks like. Now, having the vote is important,
Yes.
but more importantly than that is exercising that right to vote. And
Ah.
thing that we don't do, we do it too frequently, too often. We fail. In 2016, there was a record a number of people who went out and voted.
Yes.
Unfortunately, based upon census data, the black vote was down. And we know how critical 2016 was, and I think 2020 is even more critical because it really will define the soul of this country moving forward.
Yes.
We already have a deficit, but we just can't continue to go down that road. We'll never be a perfect nation, but we can continue to try it. And I think it's important for us to exercise that right to vote because that's our voice.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. And we appreciate you being a champion for that. And see, I believe that citizens don't really realize the importance of having a representative that you have selected and elected actually live in the district in which they serve. A lot
And
of
I'm gonna
folks
tell
will.
you,
Yes,
I was
please.
actually against it when I was first elected. We were elected at large. I was a
Yes.
part of the first group of district council members, and I was against it because it felt like it would pressure from outside forces. I mean, we had the Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick catastrophe, and we had council members who were also indicted going to prison. So you had folks who were saying we need to just change their system.
Right.
And this wasn't necessarily an outcry from the community itself. It was from outside forces saying that the reason why there was corruption that was taking place is because there's no representative by district. So to me, I felt that was totally incorrect.
Okay.
You hire someone, you elect someone who has certain personality issues prior to election. You're going to have them. They're going to be exposed once they get elected. So it's not necessarily the district situation, but being in a district now gives me an opportunity to have more direct contact with the people I serve. I couldn't do that with the entire city, but with 18.8 square miles, which is still large, and 100,000 residents, still a large number, it's a lot more manageable than 140 square miles and 700,000 residents.
Yes.
So I like it a lot more.
I'm
Better,
glad.
better now than I did in the past.
I'm glad, and I know the residents have an appreciation for it because that's
Yeah.
important. I mean, you found probably, and we all know, I mean, as a native Detroiter from Detroit, that it's easy when folks start off, I believe, with the idea of what government's supposed to look like. And then when they actually get into government, things change. But to be able to still be in that space and still be able to touch the individuals that directly elected and selected you, 100,000 individuals is no small feat. I
No,
mean, that's
no.
a huge, some Senate districts, representative state districts are that size. So
Yeah.
absolutely, it is a charge. And I know that you were very conscious of that when you served as the chief sponsor for this marijuana ordinance for the city of Detroit. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was an issue when we first started going down the road of marijuana as a whole and potentially legalizing, well, just medical marijuana.
Yes.
I wasn't aware, and I tell people all the time, that wasn't the world that I lived in. I wasn't aware that you had businesses that were actually selling marijuana
Right.
Openly. And clearly against the law. You're not supposed to have a retail business that was set up. And we had at one point in time, we calculated more than 260 of those facilities within the city of Detroit. And there were like 40-something in District 1, the district I represent,
Right.
alone, which is huge. Unfortunately, there were a number of minority, well, let me just say say minority because I don't want to use coded language,
Okay.
black business owners, black
Yes.
dispensary owners that were operating just as illegally as others,
Okay.
but they ended up getting shut down and have not been able to recover
Yes.
based upon the fact that they didn't own the property. You know, they were leasing at the time, and they were also outside of the zoning, so it makes it even much more challenging. So it's a bigger issue for me trying to figure out the equality in this industry. The reason why it was important for us to put the brakes on what was going on is because there was no representation for the most part from Detroiters.
Right.
So you have folks from outside of the city coming in, and in my the way I look at it, it was almost as if you were sucking the economic opportunities from Detroit and taking it elsewhere, and it happens in so many other industries. And this is
Yes.
one that was right. I mean, it's completely in its infancy.
Yeah.
So this is a chance for us to get it right. The
Yes.
challenge that I have is that the state wouldn't allow us to put in some of those provisions that we wanted to do, and now we're starting to hear, which is good. I just heard Attorney General Nessel was saying that she's now looking into trying to expunge the records, and then also identifying how to provide that equality within those municipalities that are more disparately affected by marijuana law.
Yes, and so I'm so happy that you mentioned that because that was the next segue I was going to go into. Do
Mm-hmm.
so now that Michigan has introduced this social equity, right?
Yes.
So they have identified some 19 plus communities, of course, Detroit being one of them, that is
Mm-hmm.
supposed to benefit from how this core group, this advisory group, has determined what the opportunity looked like. So, of course, if everyone looks in totality, if you meet the qualifications, it might be some 60 plus percent that you would get off of these fees associated with the application process and the like for establishing a business within the industry. And then they have, of course, identified representatives that are supposed to come in to each one of the communities to be able to help those applicants identify resources and the like. And then, of course, to your
Mm-hmm.
point, I believe Illinois got it right. I believe that they are the best, one of the best social equity models thus far, where they are suggesting to expunge some 800,000 records. Right now, Michigan is looking at somewhere around 235,000. And so, I believe that it's a start. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
me, I can give you comparisons of everything across this country of what it looks like, but I
Yes.
believe it's a start of the conversation. But specifically for people of color in this industry, if you don't have the $500,000 for say for a dispensary, I don't believe that the percentages make that much of a difference. If you do have the $500,000, if you're going to give me 20% off, I don't believe that makes much of a difference. But that's
Mm-hmm.
the conversation that I can continue to have. That's just Colette talking. That's
Mm-hmm.
not the councilman talking. And
No.
so, yes, to your point, social equity is at stake here. And so, when you have the feel and the reach that you have for the constituents, what kind of feedback have they given you?
Well, honestly, I mean, even those who are against recreational and medical marijuana, they still want to see the equity
Yeah.
portion added. I mean, it's as I mentioned before, unfortunately, Detroit has been the area where people end up, a lot of folks end up having their fun and then leaving. And
Yes.
their fun may be economic, it may lead from economic gain, so to speak. But if inside of the city of Detroit, but if the business owner where that person leaves their fun, entertainment, resource money is not a Detroiter,
Yes.
then that money doesn't circulate in our community. So just because the businesses are located in the community doesn't mean that we end up having an opportunity to benefit from it as a community. So we're looking at ways with the recreational marijuana ordinances coming in. How do we legally, working with the state legislation that
Yes.
allows us to, how do we strongly encourage all the way to demand some sort of community benefits for entities that are seeking to place marijuana location or cannabis businesses within our community. There's a business that I was talking to yesterday. As a matter of fact, they're looking to have a dispense or a provisioning center,
Yes.
a grow facility, as well as the processing
Yes.
at this location, which is in a industrial area, but it's right across the street from a residential area.
Yes.
So this has been some consternation, and there's some folks who are in the neighborhood just flat out saying, no, I don't want it in our community,
Yes.
period. Then you
Yes.
have others who say, I'd be okay with the growing because I don't know it's there, but I don't want the flow of customers up and down my residential street.
Right.
And then you have some who just say, you know what, it's no big deal, it's legal, we're moving in that direction. So we need to embrace this. And and also make sure that we do our best to try to get Detroiters in this business.
Yes.
I've got to listen to all those voices, and that's the challenge
Right.
as a council member, especially someone who's coming up with legislation.
Yes.
It sometimes seems for those who are within the industry that I'm totally against the industry. I'm not. I mean, I'm all for individuals doing what they believe is right for their lives. Make the choice. The choice is yours,
Yes.
especially if it's a quote-unquote legal choice, right?
Yes.
But we also have to make sure that we provide regulations that provide protections for people who live in the place where that business is located.
Yes.
And that's my job.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm quite familiar with the space that you are making reference to. So I definitely understand that. And I really want you all to understand where the Honorable Councilman is coming from. That he takes importance in understanding where legislation fits in. Legislation is everything, everyone. It's not just a conversation about it. It is what the law looks like that governs the impact of this industry on our lives. And I want you to know, I'm here today to say, and I'd love to work with you, Honorable Councilman, to introduce the other opportunities in the industry. Because everyone
Mm-hmm.
thinks that you just have to have, it's about a dispensary or a
Right,
provisional center.
right.
No, sir, you can have a transportation company. You can
Absolutely.
have a processing company for people of color. You can have a security company. You can
Absolutely.
have a real estate component. You can have a designated use space. And I believe that that's the beauty of where the social equity part comes in. And sir, maybe I'm making a plug, if you will. I happen to be the founder of, it's called CASE. It's the Cannabis Association for Social Equity. And so
Mm.
that is our charge then, to identify the spaces across this country, Detroit specific, where people of color have the opportunity to get into an industry, where the barriers of entry, everyone to be able to get a transportation license, that's $6,000 in Detroit.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not a
yeah.
$500,000 of liquid assets that you have to see. You know, a designated use license, you're looking at $1,000 in Detroit.
Mhm,
There's
mhm.
help for you in those spaces to be able to thrive and be successful in that space. And so, but I know it starts with legislation, sir. It
Yeah, I mean,
starts
but
with
even what you're
legislation.
doing, what you're doing, I mean, just right now,
Yeah.
this is another opportunity for individuals. I mean, I don't know how much you make on advertising or anything. That's none of my business. But I mean, this is another way to you educate folks. I mean, there's nothing wrong with monetizing,
Right.
providing education, as long as you don't take advantage. You're not predatory. But
Yes.
there's so many opportunities outside of the dispensary.
Yes.
But when it
Yes.
comes to if you are in a situation where you're looking to have a brick and mortar,
Right.
that's where zoning comes into play. So you
Yes.
have to be aware of it. You have to own the property. If
Yes.
you don't own the property, expect to pay way more for rent than you need to. And at any given time, even if you're not making if you're making a whole lot of money
Yes.
and you're doing some great work, at any
Yes.
given time, that property owner can snatch that away from you. So
Say
it's
it.
important to own the property, and that's what I've been telling people right now. If there's any way, and this is not just with the cannabis industry, just period, land in Detroit.
Yes.
If you have the ability to purchase land in Detroit, whether it's commercial or residential, now is the time.
Ah.
When you look around, you see folks doing it from every hue, color, a municipality in this world.
Yes.
They're coming in and they're doing it, but yet we, as Detroiters, don't appreciate what we already have in our backyard because we don't see what the possibilities of that space may be when others have. And part of it is because some of us don't travel. You know, like you said, you have the opportunity to go from place to place to place and see what works, what doesn't work, what is possible, what's not. But a lot of us don't see it.
Yes.
We see a vacant space, a vacant field, and we say it's a deficit.
Yes.
We don't have this. We don't have that. Others will look at this as an opportunity. It's a blank space that gives me a chance to create.
Yes.
And that's how we now have to start thinking when it comes to business, especially within this industry. We can't talk about or completely focus on what we can't do, what we don't have. What we have to look at is where are those spaces that are right for us
Yes.
to transform and make our own and even monetize her.
Yes, absolutely. Sir, I have to tell you, and I'm just going to take a couple more minutes of your time. I just came back from a cannabis conference in San Jose, California. There were some
Mm,
10,000 attendees. I did not come across 50 people of color.
mm,
And let me tell you, and it was so startling that when you made contact with someone, they could have been across the convention center. We ran up to each other and
mm,
hugged each other and then looked at the name tag and said hi and then introduced each other. Hi, I'm Colette. I'm from Detroit. Oh, hi, Cliff. And great morning, Cliff from Austin, Texas. Great morning, Alyssa from St. Louis. I can tell you who the people that I met because there were so few of us. And
mm-hmm,
sitting in
mm-hmm,
this space specifically for social justice, where the majority of us convened, the president of the Minority Business Cannabis Business Association said, our problem is getting the word out. And I
yeah,
raised my hand and I was like, I'm here. And she's like, you're the only person of color here that has this format.
mm,
And that is why I did create Cannabis TV because for 3 or 4 years, have been following the industry, understood that this is a $1 billion industry as forecast. And as you
mm-hmm.
said, sir, knew that leadership was so important and there would be someone like you that came up and stood up to be able to talk about what the legislation looked like. But what good was it if the people weren't educated?
Absolutely.
So that's where we are, and I appreciate. So tell me, what do you think is next for cannabis in Michigan?
Well, I mean, I think that we're trying to figure out what uh, the social equity group is going to come up with. Social equity program comes up is like very key.
Yes.
That's huge. Identifying where Attorney General Nessel is going to go. I mean, unfortunately, there's still a lot of big question marks. I
Yeah.
mean, right now it's still uh, right. There's so many different possibilities with the
Yes.
change in leadership in Lansing.
Yes.
It now gave us an opportunity to recalibrate the situation that we had going on,
Yes.
which was pretty much stalled or very staunchly one way. Now there's a possibility of some movement, but I don't know.
Right.
It really all depends on where our legislators. And this goes back to the importance of voting. Make sure you vote for those who support the ideals that you find are important to you. And
Yes.
it's not just about Republican or Democrat. This is about finding out who believes in what you believe in. And that doesn't
Yes.
mean that you're going to find someone who's going to believe everything, always been 100% behind them.
Yes.
But, I mean, if this is an issue that's very important to you, now you have to figure out how to get your sentiment known to your legislator who ultimately will have a vote on this.
Yes. It's
So
everything.
I think it's right where we have legislators who are all on the same page, but I don't know if it's the same thing with all of our suburban counterparts.
Right.
So we have a lot of people of color, and I'm just going to say it again, black folks who left Detroit, who now live in the suburbs, and they can't tell you who their legislators are. Well, if you
Come
can't
on.
tell me who your legislator is, then you can't tell me you're advocating
Come
for
on.
anything.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's the biggest challenge we have right now.
Yes.
I think in the industry, educating folks, whether you're talking about folks who are in the industry or outside of the industry, it's a huge opportunity,
Yes.
but it's also one that if we don't take advantage of it today, or at least begin to make bigger gains, we're always going to be behind. So when we talk about minority ownership in Michigan, especially in Metro Detroit, it's a little different because
Yes.
a lot of our facilities are owned by minorities.
Yes.
They're just not owned by black
Right.
Detroiters.
Right.
And black Detroit, this is an 80% black city.
Yes.
So I think we've got to, again, be very intentional about the language in Detroit especially. So when we say minority, that's not a challenge
Right.
in Detroit. Minority ownership. It's African American ownership, which
Yes.
represents and reflects the demographic of the municipality. That's the biggest challenge we have right now.
Absolutely. I look forward to having you in the studio. I look forward
Absolutely.
to having conversations about putting together a workshop. You have an amazing team with you. They've been so helpful in connecting the dots for us. So I so appreciate your time this morning, sir. Thank you so much for your leadership. And are there any last words that you'd like to share with the audience?
No, just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, I
Okay.
think this is important. Government always has to work with the community
Yes.
and with the industries that we're looking to affect, because we can't do it in a vacuum. We do it in a vacuum, we'll get it wrong.
Right.
We work together, then we have a possibility of getting it close to as right as possible. But I know doing it in a vacuum, we'll absolutely get it wrong. And that's what happened in the past with government, especially in this area. We've done it by ourselves and have gotten it completely wrong. This is a chance now for us to improve upon our mistakes of the past.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you so much for your leadership. We all do, no matter if you're in District 1 or the citywide. So thank you, because we wouldn't have gotten here without you knowing the importance and speaking up. Because I can imagine the conversations around your leadership in that. But we'll save that for another show. So thank you so much, Honorable Councilman James Tate. It has been a pleasure. Have an amazing day, and thank you.
You as well.
Okay.
Thank you now.
No problem. So everyone, you heard it. That was an amazing conversation with Honorable Councilman Tate. And leadership matters. Everybody, if you're not aware of what is going on, as he said, if you have elected officials, if you're electing people, and we're going to get there, because you all know that there were 3 communities that voted yesterday. They had a voice in this cannabis space, in the marijuana ordinance space. Of course, Highland Park, it was the village of Vanderbilt, and Crystal Lake. So we're going to talk about what that looks like. And I got another guest in the building. She is a mother. She's a community activist. She's a researcher. She's my friend, Angela Lugo Thomas. She will be in after the break. I see we got a call. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go do a quick break, and then we're going to continue the conversation. Callers, don't go anywhere. We're going to get you when we come right back for more cannabis, discussing the business of cannabis. We'll be right back.
I'm the president of Strava Craft Coffee. We're a local specialty coffee roaster. We've been in business for 1.5 years. We chose to celebrate the infusion of cannabis into some really fantastic coffee. The really great thing about Denver is that it's a community of innovators, of makers, of specialty foods, specialty experiences. And as we've moved into the cannabis community with our hemp-infused coffee, we've connected with members of this community that are extremely supportive. They believe in our vision, and they help connect us with resources. We're using a hemp-derived CBD oil to infuse into the beans, and it produces some really fantastic results for consumers. You can enjoy a couple cups of coffee and not worry about coffee jitters, and it's fantastic for alleviating anxiety as well. We roast all of our coffees here in Denver, Colorado. We do the infusions here as well, and then package up in 12-ounce bags of whole bean coffee. And we sell those at a couple cafes locally in town, and we do sell those online, and they can order right there, and we'll ship directly to their house. You can prepare it by a French press or AeroPress, however you like to prepare your coffee at home.
Imagine the rare opportunity to be positioned in front of an industry that still has a product just like water every human being on the planet needs to maintain itself, but yet still in its infancy, virtually unknown to most of the world. An opportunity that until now has been unattainable for the masses. Our company is Kanna. We are Kanna, what you've imagined.
You're watching Detroit's own WHPR TV. Detroit Live.
Hi, this is Colette Ramsey. You can watch me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the WHPR TV Now app. Download our free app at WHPR TV Now.
Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern. TV 33 is moving to WHPS TV channel 15.2. Make sure to rescan the channels on your TV. Then go to WHPS channel 15.2 to pick up TV 33 and all of your favorite shows. The move is on, and we want you to move with us to WHPS channel 15.2. You're watching WHPS TV, Detroit Live.
Morning to you, rise and shine. If you are just tuning in to CanBiz, discussing the business of cannabis, great morning to you. I am Colette Ramsey. I have the pleasure of being the host of this show, hostess, or however you want to call me, the facilitator of the cannabis conversation. I want to open this up with a quote. I was so excited that with the Honorable Councilman, and please, y'all, if you missed it, you missed a treat. The Honorable Detroit City Councilman James Tate was on with us for the first part of the hour to discuss what Voting Rights Act looked like, the importance of that legislation, that historical legislation. Yesterday, we were voting about cannabis in this community, and then his leadership role in sponsoring the bill for the ordinance for initially putting structure to cannabis in the city of Detroit. Let me give us the opening quote from Lyndon B. Johnson. It was in 1965. The quote states, "The vote is the most powerful instrument ever devised by man for breaking down injustice and destroying the terrible laws which imprison men because they are different from other men." Yesterday, we had a chance to vote, everyone. There were 3 municipalities that had the opportunity to address marijuana cannabis ordinances. The city of Highland Park, the village of Vanderbilt, and Crystal Lake. With me this morning to sit and talk about the results from the city of Highland Park is our own community activist, researcher, my neighbor, my friend, the Angela Lugo Thomas. Great, amazing morning to you, Angela.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm amazing. How are you?
Good.
Good.
It's early.
It's early? Well, because you had a full night last night.
Yes.
You were on the ground,
Yes.
paying attention to the polls,
And we must all do that.
paying attention to the numbers.
Absolutely.
So, are you shocked about anything that happened on yesterday?
It was a fascinating experience to watch it unfold.
Very good.
Am I shocked? I'm relieved.
Nice.
That's what I would say.
That's a great word. You're
because
relieved.
let's just say.
Say it, Nancy Angela. Angela, say it.
If we had not paid more attention as a community, I think a lot of people would be upset to know what this ordinance would have meant to our community.
Sure. And let us just recap this ordinance, everyone. If you didn't know, so Highland Park had an ordinance. The vote was no. Let me just say that. Let me everyone know. If you all didn't know, let me give what I got, and if the numbers change, I can share that with you. But at 6 of 7 of the precincts reporting, the votes no for the Highland Park ordinance were at 506 votes. That was 56%. And yes was at 397 votes at 43%. Was that kind of close? Or
Yeah,
were you,
so these
okay.
were, again, they're
The
unofficial.
final- the unofficial
but
final
final.
numbers. Okay, what do you have?
And I have the yes vote for 457,
Okay, so
and
that's about
the
50.
no vote was 593.
Okay, so it was a change,
Just
about
a slight,
50 to
yeah.
60, but it was a resounding no. And everyone, what was proposed was 2 dispensaries. That's
Basically.
it. Let me just,
Yeah.
No micro businesses, no processing centers, nothing else. Nothing else of all the boxes you could check to establish viable businesses as a cohesive unit in a
Absolutely.
community. It was only for 2 at a designated space. And there was tons of literature, and
Yes.
of course, it all looked good.
It sounded
and
good.
The promises of it looked good.
Yes.
Here was a piece of it. But you, the citizens, said no.
Thank you.
They said no.
Yes.
So everyone, while we're sitting on that note, we got a call. Let's go
Yes.
to the line. We want to make sure everyone's a part of the conversation. Great morning to you.
How you doing today?
Amazing, thank you. How are you?
All right. Well, great show, Cannabis. Great co-host.
Yes, she
Great
is.
topic. This is DJ Mom International Hip Hop.
Yes.
There's a couple of things I'd like to bring up.
Okay.
I would like to ask, before I make a comment,
Okay.
what is the opinion? Like, I just saw that Highland Park denied the opportunity.
Yes.
They voted against that proposal.
Yes.
So I would like to know your guest's opinion, her opinion for it, and for the city, like, together, what's y'all's opinion before I say my opinion?
Okay, sure.
I'm
Would you like
not
to share?
understanding
So he
the-
wants to know.
My personal opinion?
Yes, you
Because
want
I
her
wouldn't be able
personal
to. Yeah.
opinion
Your personal
about
opinion.
the vote,
And,
the no
and
vote.
then the opinion for what's best for the city, because
Well,
we
is
have
it the
a personal
opinion? Did you want her
opinion.
opinion about the what the vote was, or what it was best for the city, or both?
No. I want to know her opinion, if she don't mind giving it to me. Then collectively, from the city
Right.
perspective,
Okay.
Okay.
what
I
do
can
y'all
give
think
you.
about the vote results?
Thank you so much for your question, your comment. I can give you my personal opinion, but I wouldn't be able to speak for the city because I believe that the residents need to speak for themselves. But I was satisfied with the fact that it was voted down, only because this ordinance was not the ordinance that our city council was creating for our community. And in Highland Park, we believe that we should be in control of our own ordinances. And so for someone to bring a lawsuit against the city clerk to force this on the ballot was really what we took issue with. So that is why I was against it, and I just feel like the community spoke. And yes, there's probably going to be other proposals in the future, and so we'll see how this plays out. But I was very satisfied with how we voted yesterday.
Okay.
Nice. So she
okay.
answered that.
Yeah. No. So, now, the thing is this. Even though the proposal was brought about by somebody else, now, objectively, because Highland Park sit on Woodward,
Yeah.
okay, and all these surrounding communities, like for example, we used to, the city of Detroit residents used to argue, well, how come all these dispensaries was on 8 Mile, right?
Yes.
Now, when all these dispensaries on 8 Mile, it's a county on the other side of the street that don't allow not one medical marijuana dispensary.
Okay.
So, for a couple of years, there was businesses off of 8 Mile they just had a bus. They were sitting right next to a county that didn't allow none of it. So, county residents was coming into the city of Detroit to spend money.
Okay.
But that never was looked at it. But if you go to, it's a state line between Illinois and Indiana. It's a street just as big as mine.
Okay.
One side is Indiana, one side is Illinois. Plenty of Illinois residents would just cross the street to buy liquor to save on taxes. So I
Okay.
never understand why we in this community don't prosper like that, don't think like that. But all the other communities, they use our communities like that. So
Okay.
I'd like to know your opinion.
Well, let me jump in, right? So let me just jump in. And I believe the truth of the matter is the residents of this city did think like that. But the premise of the ordinance was that someone else identified that the city was going to have 2 dispensaries, that someone identified where those dispensaries were going to be, that those dispensaries weren't owned by people who were residents of this city, and so it would not have benefited this city.
Correct.
And so, at the end of the day, as residents of a city, I mean, we can pull up the other municipalities if you want to get an example, like the village of Vanderbilt or Crystal Lake. As a resident of that city, you have the option of creating your own ordinance. And if indeed someone comes in to suggest something different, you have the option to not agree with them.
Correct.
Because let me just tell you, as this was presented, I don't agree with it. There was no one that I knew who owned either one of those businesses. I believe that if you were trying to be fair and just, you would have created a plethora of options
Correct.
on this ordinance. For example, if you want to look at Crystal Lake, they denied Crystal Lake, but Crystal Lake's ordinance had for some 22 license for dispensaries. Okay? So, it was a plethora of other business opportunities that the community said, no, we don't want all of that in our small space. But for Highland Park, for you to not say, yes, we want micro businesses, yes, we want a transportation arm, yes, we want a processing thing, that's cohesive legislation that would benefit everyone. And specifically, if the two businesses that were established in the ordinance aren't owned by black folk in the community, then you say you're going to bring all these jobs back. Well, we all know, if you know about a dispensary, the structure, you might have, especially in this type of municipality, you might have 3 employees.
Maybe.
You might have 2 bud tenders and a security guard. So, okay, that's 6 jobs that you say you might give to the people who live in this community, but you want to boast that that's thriving. And furthermore, it was disingenuous that you suggest it's going to bring in all these monies when the only thing suggested is that you paid the initial application fee and another fee which would round about to $5,000, and then it's just the regular tax money. That's it. Hey, Ma, you can't tell me that's not beneficial to anybody.
Not as well. At least many
Not
of us
to the
did not
people.
feel that way.
Yes.
But I would also have to.
Let her add.
I'm sorry. Well, I would also like to add. I'm sorry.
Hold on, Emma. Let her add.
I want to add to that, just because we said no for this particular Prop 1 does not mean that we're saying no to this idea of having this opportunity here in Highland Park.
Yes.
That's not what we're saying. We just said no to this Prop 1. So there are going to be others that come up, and we might say yes to those, but at least let us control, at least have some kind of say-so as to what it looks like in our own community where we live.
Yes.
And that's all we were asking for.
Yes, Emma.
Thank you. That was what would need to be verbalized.
Okay.
Because the city of Highland Park sits in the middle
Exactly.
of Detroit.
Yes.
Now, Detroit residents right now are enjoying the new rules and the new concepts. But we don't hear that Highland Park has legally changed its laws and rules and regulations, whereas from going inside the city of Detroit, it's just like going into Highland Park. So the things you do in Detroit, you can do in Highland Park.
Okay.
I would like to see that because Highland Park is it can become a destination
Very true.
if it's based on that.
Yes.
If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Just like right now, I'm a Detroit resident. Okay, I don't know if I go into Highland Park, and Highland Park is going to treat me like how Detroit treat me. Meaning, from being a resident of a community and being a non-resident community, we still have these particular things going on all throughout the metropolitan Detroit area.
Sure.
We all know that.
Yes.
Okay?
Sure.
But right now, it's an opportunity for Highland Park to become a social setting for the residents of the city of Detroit and for the tourists of Detroit.
Well, guess what, A-Bomb? And that's what we want.
Yes, that's what
but
we
we
want.
want
Okay.
black.
So-
But let me say this much on that point, and I'm going to make sure I get the other callers in. But to the councilman's point as well, that black folk need to own it.
And
I get it.
and people who live
And
here.
people who
Yes.
live here
Yes.
need to own it.
Yes.
And yes, as the councilman said, other minorities,
Right.
because we know the plethora of them in Detroit
Yes.
and all over the other municipalities that own it. But there's 2 black folk in Detroit that own dispensaries, and they're partners in that. I mean, I know of one.
Right.
So come on now, y'all. Let's have the real conversation.
Correct.
Right. We're not talking about minority in that regard. We're talking about black folk.
Yes.
Black folk that own. We should be able to own a dispensary. We should be able to own the processing center. We should be able to own the transportation company. We should be able to own the security company. We should be able to own. You get where we're going with this? We should be able to own
You should be able to own the weed bank.
all of it. You should be able to own all of it.
Yes.
Not just create legislation for the other folks who then reap the benefit of minority. That's where leadership comes in. Amen. I appreciate you. I want to make sure I get
Thank
everybody
you.
in.
Yes.
So thank you
Thank
for
you. Everybody have
bringing
a
that
blessed day.
conversation
Okay,
up.
you too.
We
Thank you.
appreciate that. And before we get to the next caller, and let's talk about the importance
Yes.
of leadership going forward, Angela, because it looks like they're going some
Yes.
city council things that are going to change, and well, the top 4 going on, and
Right.
then the top 2 for mayor. But that leadership still has to be able to address this now.
Correct. And, one of the things that the council, the current council, I would have to say now,
Yes.
current to future, they want to be able to complete their ordinance before the end of the year.
Okay.
So they have they're working on the final draft. And as you know, they then have to read it. And then community input has to happen.
Yes.
So again, there's a process in place. And the city council is the legislative body of the city. They're
Yes.
supposed to do this. So we want to allow them the opportunity to do it, and to do it in a way that we are also involved in the process.
Yes.
And that was very important to us. I mean, we've already had 2 community meetings about this ordinance, and there were a lot of people who showed up and gave input, and they took that, and so they're working with the legal department and trying to make sure that they encompass as much of what we want to see
Yes.
into the ordinance.
Yes.
So it's important that we pay attention.
Yes.
We have to pay attention.
Absolutely.
I've learned that.
Yes.
We cannot be asleep at the wheel anymore. We
Right.
have to be engaged in this process in order for it to feel like we are part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you all know that Highland Park is designated one of those 19
Yes.
communities under this social equity support
Correct.
component, where they're going to be identified a representative from the state
Mm-hmm.
that's supposed to be able to come in, work with the government, work with the citizens to be
Correct.
able to help shape what opportunities look like within this industry.
Right.
So that will play a part, I believe, in
Absolutely.
what the development of the ordinance looks like.
And there's
because-
no
Yes.
deadline. I mean, the timetable, a lot of people have made reference to,
Yes.
oh, we're late to the game. We're not. We're not late to the game.
Right.
So I want people to stop saying that and
Right.
stop repeating that, because we want to get it right. And it takes time to get some things right. And there's no sense in rushing it and then having to backtrack like, oh, we made a mistake here.
Yes.
And that's important too. So that's what I mean by the process. You have to let the process take its course.
Yes.
Trying to rush something through is not always the best thing.
And say it.
Yeah.
And Highland Park can't be late if
Right.
Vanderbilt
Right.
just voted.
Crystal Lake,
If Crystal Lake
right.
just voted.
And there are other communities who might.
Tons of other communities. You all stop it. And when
Yes.
only 33 states are still buying in, we
Right.
still have some almost 20 more. So
Correct.
we're not late, and we want the opportunity to reap the benefits,
Mm-hmm.
because it goes back to what Honorable Councilman said, that once legislation is in
Yes.
place, it's in place.
Right.
And you have to be able, you have one chance to get it right in the start, and then it opens the door for what's going to come next.
Correct.
Let's go to the lines.
Okay.
Thanks for your patience. Great morning to you. Caller, you there?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Colette.
Good morning.
How are you?
Amazing. How are you, Kim?
I'm wonderful, thank you, and good morning to your guest as well.
Good morning.
Nice.
Good morning. Yes, I had a question. Because I need to know: is there some place to read about this ordinance more extensively? Because I think I heard a little bit about it before, a little bit here and a little bit there, and I never heard or saw extensively what this is all about.
Yes.
And so for a while, I was thinking, when I first heard you talk, I was thinking, oh, no, they voted it down. So I didn't understand what it was all about. So I'm wondering, is there some place to get more extensive information on what this ordinance covers, what it's all about?
Yes.
Because all I'm hearing is snippets of information here and snippets of information there.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, and I don't really live in Highland Park, but I would really like to understand what's going on. And then just one more thing before you go answer that. Colette, you had a guest on this show recently who spoke about the other cultures of Detroit and just around the country who don't wait. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm off course here, but they don't wait to be told it's okay to do something. And I'm hoping that in this case that's the case as well. I'm hoping that plans are going forward for whatever dispensaries or whatever grows need to go into place, but they don't wait to get permission or even licenses necessarily. I mean, they do it and then they go through the consequences of what may happen later. So
Okay, so let's go yes, you can go to the City of Highland Park's website. If you Google City of Highland Park, the link will come up. And then if you look on the home page, there is a link for marijuana ordinance. And it unfolds the ordinance in its entirety. And as Angela stated before, it is not that the citizens of the city, again, let's be clear, don't want the opportunity, Angela, correct?
That's correct.
It's just that the citizens and the leadership of the city want the opportunity to create the ordinance and then have input in it versus someone telling you this is what it's supposed to look like, and we're ultimately reaping the benefits, and then we're going to give you propaganda that would have you to believe something that's not true. Let me just tell you, those two dispensaries are not going to assist the city with demolishing buildings, hiring more police and fire, improving neighborhoods, reopening the library, and fixing the roads. Stop, you all. Stop. That's not the only way that happens. Now, I'm going to really be creative with you right now, is if the city owns the dispensary. So if the city creates a space where the city owns a dispensary, and then those funds that are identified through the sale and the like, then are allocated for that. But that's really creative thinking. But, you all can sit and talk to me about it. I could talk to you about it. That's what I know. To be creative in that.
Those promises that were made, and I've heard a lot of them.
Yes.
They're not anywhere in that ordinance.
No.
So there's no legal contract that says that that's what they're going to do. So yeah, I could tell you anything if I want to get your vote.
I'd say the sky's falling, and you have to be ready right now.
Exactly.
Right, we're going to go to the moon. Yeah. Yes. And to the second point, and I totally understand. I believe we support progressive thinking and progressive action, but now's the time that we can function in legislative space.
Correct.
So there's nothing now that you want to do in this industry that you cannot do, that license aren't there to be able to afford you to. So we don't have to be rogue anymore, right? So we don't have to do it and then ask for forgiveness later. We don't have to do that. Our problem is we're not creative enough to even want to jump out there to do something.
Right.
And we only think that the only thing we can do is a dispensary.
Right.
No. There's so much more you can do.
And we all have to be educated to learn what those opportunities are. And that's part of the process. That's part of this platform, as well as attending meetings and getting more engaged.
Yes.
Okay, well then can I ask one more question of your guest?
Sure.
Hopefully, I mean, I'm not sure because I'm really new to all of this.
Yes.
But hopefully there are people putting grow space and building space into play right now, so that when a proper ordinance comes about, they're ready. Is that what's happening, or is that right?
And I will say, I told Colette this earlier. I'm a layperson, so I'm new to this too. So we're all kind of learning. But I will say this: there are people who have been paying attention to Highland Park and waiting for our ordinance to take effect, so that they can bring their business here. So there are people already that have been looking. I mean, many of them showed up to the meeting, so I know that they're here, and they were here over the last few weeks as well. So there are people in line and ready whenever we get this ordinance in place to take advantage of the opportunity. So yes, I believe there are many people that are setting themselves up to be ready day one.
And I think more importantly to that, I'm imploring Highland Parkers to get yourself ready.
Yes.
Because that's still another part. Because then you'll have a problem. I mean, it's no different than those who created this proposed ordinance. They are outsiders. Highland Parkers are always talking about who we are. You don't let it. I mean, they give me flux because I wasn't born in Highland Park. So at the end of the day, we're so proud to be Highland Parkers. So Highland Parkers, you get ready.
Yes.
You get your businesses together. You get the real estate together. You get where you want to be in this space together. Because I believe that if you don't take care of home first, to me, that's what an ordinance looks like.
Absolutely.
That you give opportunity to the first people who are residents of this city.
Right.
And then, after the residents, for example, Massachusetts, sadly enough, has 123 license permits sitting right there under social equity that people right now can take advantage of. Do you know how many people have applied?
5. I was still going to say less than 10.
5.
That's
5. out of 123. Massachusetts, don't worry, we're coming for you. So don't even worry about it. I already got plans for you. But that's what it's about. So we can sit and talk about it, but if we're not prepared for the opportunity, it's no different. Other people, so we'll create it to supposedly benefit the
Right.
community, and then other people will
We'll
still
take
reap the
advantage.
benefits of it.
Yes. And one of the things that we need to do almost as soon as possible is have workshops
Yes.
here in our community to educate people.
Yes.
Because like I said, I'm new to this.
Yes.
We need to be educated at what's available, how to
Yes.
go about the process.
Yes.
There's so much to learn.
Yes.
But we can do it because we are amazing.
Yes, we are amazing.
We are amazing in
And
Highland
let
Park.
me just tell you right now, in all the circles that you are in, whatever I can do to lend my expertise,
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
all you have to do is call me.
Absolutely,
And
I
I'm
know
putting
that.
together, a cannabis 101 workshop too.
Oh,
I want
excellent.
to do that in the fourth quarter, so that's coming within the next couple of
Good.
months. So I
Okay.
look forward
That's
to
wonderful.
working with you in that.
Yes.
And so, Kim, we appreciate you.
Thank
Our
you.
time is up
Thank
this
you.
morning. Thank you so much. You know, you can
Thanks for
always
the
go to
information.
everyone cannabis.tv. That's KANNABIZ.tv. That is a portal for every news, all the information that you need. It identifies the Senate hearing that just had on banking. You know, that's what we do. I got to keep you educated.
Yes.
So our time is up this morning.
All right.
And what would you like to share? Any parting words?
Well, just that, please, everyone in Highland Park, continue to be involved, get engaged, go to the council meetings, go to the community meetings. If there's the town hall, show up. We need to start to show up to our community events
Yes.
so that we can be a part of the process here. We have to stop thinking, oh, they'll take care, somebody else will handle that, somebody else will take it. Oh, they're looking out for us. We have to make sure that what we want is what they're doing.
Amen.
Because they work for us.
That's right. That's right. We appreciate
Yes.
your leadership
Thank
and your
you.
advocacy. And thank you. I'd love to have you back. You all,
Yes.
if you didn't know, her husband is Jamal Thomas, who has spent the last couple of weeks with us. So it's a family affair. And I look forward to getting the daughters on, too.
Oh,
We're going to
yes.
work on that. Everyone, our time is up. I pray that you have been educated, enlightened, and empowered on today. I want to leave us with a quote that I think is so appropriate. The function of freedom is to free someone else. That is from our own Toni Morrison. Again, the function of freedom is to free someone else. We free you by giving you information and then to impact you and effectuate the positive change. Make your moments matter. Make today amazing. Until next time, see you then.